So hit it.
Hello and welcome to This is the Play Sports, the podcast. For those of you watching and about to be listening, I know you're thinking, oh, is this the Saturday show on 1280 The Zone? And I tell you, it's not, okay? We're just privileged to have both the hosts from the show, Jake Hatch and Alex Lundberg, with us. I'm psyched. Are you psyched, Dad?
I'm very psyched. It's good to have you guys with us. Thanks again.
Thanks for having us. I'm liking the upgraded backdrop you guys have got. It's been a minute since I've been on. But
we have a lot of trinkets. Yeah.
We've got a few trinkets in the house.
We have an embarrassment of riches here. There are more things we could probably put up. We just do what we can. We don't want to overdo it.
Or saturate the market. Well, guys, it's rivalry week. In case you didn't know, I think everybody knows. What are your initial thoughts on the game, guys? Alex, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm one of those people that has grown up in the state. I've always loved the rivalry. And so I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be a fun game. I know that a lot of the metrics, favor Utah over BYU, but I did see one that I think it might have been Jake that retweeted it that actually gave BYU a slight edge. It was according to their metrics, BYU had a 50.01% chance of winning. So, that metric had it very close, but I'm really excited. I think it's, no matter what the outcome, it's going to be a fun time.
We got to hear this metric then. Yeah, Jake, enlighten us.
I think it was Brian Fremo. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's one of those analytic guys on Twitter. I think BC Fremo on Twitter. And he said the analytics bear out that BYU is a 50.01% favorite in this contest.
Well, I hope
is he the same analyst who predicted that Hillary would beat Trump in 2016? That seems a little absurd,
Yeah,
I hope there's no splinters on the top of that fence he's sitting on. But
very much so.
Jake, a lot about both teams. What's your initial thoughts on this matchup?
I always look forward to it every year. I know there are portions of each fan base who say that we're over this, we shouldn't play this game, and I know that it's changed as well, considering Utah's now in the Pac-12. BYU reportedly headed to the Big 12 here. So obviously the dynamics have changed because it's no longer for conference supremacy, that type of stuff. But I still think it means a lot to people in this state. It's very much a 365-a-day-a-year rivalry, and it exists in everything, folks. So just embrace it. I love this week. It's a lot of fun.
Austin, here in the first quarter, we're talking Utah-BYU. What are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be. I'll just say, first of all, I think Utah's going to win. I think they're going to blow them away. I don't think they really have any chance. I think Utah is too experienced, especially defensively, for BYU really to get much going on offense. My prediction for the game is that Utah scores at least one defensive touchdown in this game. But yeah, I think both of our guys here made some great points. And for me, I think this is really going to close the book on a really interesting era in this rivalry because, as we all know, they're going to take a 2-year break after this game. And with BYU moving into the Big 12, it's very possible that the quality of play could elevate down in Provo, over those 2 years, depending on when they go into the conference. So this rivalry could look really different, after this year, after Utah closes the book on winning 10 straight.
Alex and Jake, Utah's trying to set a record here by winning 10 straight in this series. Why do you think that's never happened? 9's a pretty lofty streak, and I know BYU just done it before and Utah's done it. But why has nobody hit double digits in this rivalry? How about you, Jake?
Well, so I just did all summer long a look back at the 100 seasons that BYU has played on my podcast, Locked On Cougars, and the early running in the early 1900s, so we're talking 1922 through the mid-40s, there was a couple of those 9-game streaks, and it was broken by a tie of all things most of the time. I don't know why it never has gotten to a double-digit streak. It just seems like one of those statistical anomalies, but I tend to lean your way, Austin. I think this game, Utah will get to that 10-win mark, but maybe down the road in a couple of years when they finally reconvene, maybe things are a little bit different.
Alex, do you see things different in 2 years from now than they are now?
Yeah, I think that things will definitely be different, with BYU joining a conference that they'll be able to use, as far as recruiting goes, they'll be able to get some of that talent that maybe they haven't been getting during independence, guys that have gone to either Utah or Stanford or other places because they want to play for a P5 school, and BYU right now doesn't really qualify by a lot of the standards. And I think that BYU will be able to keep a lot of those guys home. So I think that this year, I'm in agreement with what everybody else has said, that Utah reaches that 10-game win streak on Saturday. And it'll be interesting to see when they do play again after this 2-year hiatus, how far BYU has come along, because the recruiting will step up, especially with, as it looks right now, BYU is looking to join in 2023. Texas and Oklahoma don't leave till 2025. So that will actually still be a pretty strong conference. They should see a significant recruiting bump. However, what we saw with Utah was that it took really a full recruiting cycle for them to really establish themselves. It wasn't until that 4th season in the Pac-12 that they really came into, a true Power 5 team. So we'll see if BYU is able to kind of speed that process up a little bit, even with just the announcement coming this week and having a few years to prepare for that. But I do think that that talent gap will close over the coming years.
All right. Well, it's time for the second quarter. Let's look back at last week. Jake, what do you think of BYU's performance against Arizona? They got off to a strong start, but almost kind of had to hold on at the end. Thank goodness Arizona's kicker struggled and a few other things. But was that game closer than it maybe looked? Did BYU have it in hand, in your opinion?
I felt like early on BYU had a pretty comfortable lead, but that third quarter sure made it seem a lot more interesting. The safety really gave Arizona some life. Then they went down and punched in that touchdown. And suddenly it went from being, okay, well, BYU's holding him at an arm's length to a single possession game. So he became pretty nervy on the stretch there. The coaches that I have heard from this week, speaking with them during media availability, Aaron Roderick, chief among them, said that he felt like they didn't close the game the right way in their assessment, and I would agree with him. I felt like they could have closed that game better, slammed the door shut on Arizona, but they let him hang around, and they got away with the victory, but they obviously could have played better, especially in that second half.
Austin, a win is a win is a win.
Yes, I would agree. It is. Yeah. I mean, Sammy and I, this is embarrassing to admit. I didn't watch the whole game. Sammy and I went to Disneyland over the weekend, and so I didn't see any of the Utah game. I saw the last 3 minutes of the BYU game, and I remember watching that onside kick that Arizona hit, at the end of the game, and I was like, oh my god, they had a chance to grab it. I thought one of their guys really saw it slip through their fingers. In the end, though, it's a game they needed to win. Arizona's probably going to finish dead last in the Pac-12 this year. It really wouldn't have set the tone for any confidence going into the Utah game, had they, lost to, the cellar or the cellar or basement or
cellar dwellers.
Yeah. Cellar dwellers of the Pac-12. So, yeah, I mean, it was BYU needed to win that. And so they did. Good enough.
Hey, Alex, let's jump over to the Utah-Weber State game. We knock out 2 local teams there, but Utah didn't really struggle other than giving up that kickoff return.
Yeah, there were things that, and Kyle Whittingham said as much in his post-game comments, he thought that they had a lot to clean up. I think anybody that watches that would agree that there was a good amount. I don't know that I saw as much need for cleaning up as Kyle Whittingham did, but a large percentage of that is probably because I'm not an FBS football coach. And so there's a lot that I don't pick up on. But yeah, Utah came out, had some first game jitters that are completely understandable and normal, a few missed assignments here and there, a few dropped passes, but all in all looked every bit like one of the contenders for the conference. Charlie Brewer looked very accurate with his passing, had a couple of just touchdown drops that were perfectly placed that the receivers need to come down with. And I think that they've been hearing that all week in practice, likely. The O-line had a couple missed assignments here and there, but a lot of that, I think, was also due to starters being held out for precautionary reasons. And so that was a good opportunity for that depth to develop, to give some of those guys that are on the 2 deep that might not see as much action, some game experience, to get them shored up just in case their number does get called later on in the season as somebody goes down with injury. So this really was a tune-up game for Utah that, they started a little bit slow. We're down 7-3 early, but saw everything that you needed to see as they were able to come back, set the tone, and really just dominate that game.
Jake, maybe you could touch on the Utes a little bit, and then let's go north a little bit. And Utah State kind of stuck it to the Pac-12 by winning at Washington State. And I realize the Cougars aren't expected to do a heck of a lot, but that's a big win for the Aggies. But is the Pac-12 as imbalanced as it looks after week 1?
Well, when you're Washington and you lose at home to Montana, and then the rest
Right.
of the division goes 1-5, and the one team that wins is Oregon, and they had their issues with Fresno State, it looks imbalanced after 1 week. There's no doubt about that. I do want to tip my cap to Blake Anderson and what Utah State did. That should not be overlooked by any stretch. If I'm not mistaken, it's their first win on the road at a Pac-12 team since at least 1978. So pretty incredible, and the fight they showed, because they needed a lot to go right in that fourth quarter, especially kind of the final 7 to 8 minutes to win that game. And obviously it worked out where they got that victory, but we all know how bad Utah State looked last year. So for them to go up there, do that, and Blake Anderson's first game as the head coach, I think it bodes well for the future here of the Aggies. And I'm not convinced that this is suddenly going to spark them to a 8, 9, 10 win season, but it's a very nice feather in his cap as he starts his tenure in Logan.
And then just maybe quickly just touch on the Utes. Were you surprised with how that game turned out? I'm sure when it was 7-3 and the rain delay, if I were Weber State, I would have taken the team out for a photo out in front of the scoreboard, kind of like what Lee Corso did many years ago with Indiana. But that was kind of shocking, but that was probably the only surprise on the night.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed is a big-time talent. I don't know how many people have had a chance to see him play for Weber State, but that dude can absolutely ball out, and it was a really phenomenal kick return. But, yeah, I felt like the game went about as I expected. I still have concerns about Utah's offensive line. It's still very much in flux. They were talking about it. Kyle Whittingham said it was the one thing that was really keeping him up at night in the lead up to that game. It sounds like it's not going to be settled this week against BYU quite fully, but really it doesn't need to be settled until you begin Pac-12 play. We all know that. You've got two weeks here to really get things settled on that front. But I just felt like the game went about as I expected. Weber State is a very good program, but they are an FCS level program. Utah should not struggle against them. Washington probably could take a few notes out of their book.
Absolutely. Well, it's halftime here at the podcast. 2 quarters down, 2 to go. Let's just jump right in, take a quick drink here.
We forgot. We usually have like a soda or like a Dutch Brothers drink here.
So we're just pretending today.
Yeah, sorry.
Third quarter. Let's talk about.
I'll just pull my water out. We'll have some fun with that.
There we go.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Look at this.
That was refreshing watching you drink that. Okay.
2 words. Stay hydrated. Here we go. All right. Quarter 3, guys. Alex, you touched on it a little bit. Let's talk about BYU to the Big 12. How big of a deal is this? Because I personally think BYU deserves this opportunity.
Yeah, and I expressed on the Saturday show, a few weeks back to Jake, he probably remembers this, that at first I was a little bit hesitant, wondering if this would be the best move for BYU, especially because at the time there had been some rumblings that it might be a football only move. And given the uncertain future of the Big 12, me saying, if I'm BYU, I would very much hesitate on this. I think that the Big 12 has done enough to kind of solidify, especially with inviting not just one other team besides BYU, but 3 other teams, so that when Texas and Oklahoma do depart, the Big 12 will truly be the Big 12 again, because it'll actually have that number of teams. But I think that they're making good moves, and I think that they are doing enough to have a stable landscape. And the fact that BYU is bringing all sports in as well really helps their cause and makes it a very smart, positive move. One of the things about it that excites me the most is to see it potentially reinvigorate the rivalry in a new way, add another new layer to it, because the past decade, it's still been the rivalry, but it kind of feels like it lost a little bit of that luster because it's no longer for a conference title. It's no longer at the end of the year. And so there's a few of those things. But now when BYU transitions, like I said earlier, the talent gap will start to close, and it'll now be a Pac-12, Big 12 matchup. So not only is it in-state rivalry, but it's an intra-conference rivalry where we're able to look at two power conferences and add just kind of the whole loyalty of those conferences behind that rivalry as it stands. And I think that just adds a whole new interesting element to it that I'm really excited to see how that plays out.
I think it'll be a good opportunity for both teams to stack themselves up nationally, even just within playing in state, say, hey, BYU maybe beat Houston or UCF this year, and Utah was able to beat them. That the transitive property would indicate that Utah could beat UCF, Houston, and, other teams that are in the Big 12. I think that's a great point.
Hey, Jake, BYU they went to the altar with the Big 12 before, and that it's kind of ironic now that the Big 12 needs BYU perhaps more than BYU needs the Big 12, or do you see it that way?
Oh, no, it's very much a dynamic shift at this point because the Big 12 is trying to secure their future. We all know that. And these four teams, are they blue bloods? No, they're not. But they're in emerging markets. They're population centers. You can think of like a school like UCF. They're very much still in their infancy as a university. But Mike Gundy said they have 71,000 students. Their alumni base, give them 10, 20 years, that alumni base is going to be absolutely huge. And you would
including
think,
Daniel Tosh, by the way.
Good point. Yeah, very good point there. I very, very nicely played, Austin. I love Tosh.0, by the way.
Great job.
But they're going to have a nice population base there. Cincinnati, it's a big TV market. You bring them in, hopefully they can build you up a little bit. And I think Houston, it keeps that Texas-centric feel for the Big 12 there, even with University of Texas leaving. And we all know that Tillman Fertitta, for all of his warts, he's got plenty of money. So I think it's a nice move here. The one thing I am interested in, I've seen some people talk about this, is that there is potential for BYU and these other three schools to compete with Texas and Oklahoma for a year or two before they ultimately leave for the SEC. And then after that, according to Pete Thamel, there could be another round of realignment for the Big 12 to stay at 14 teams and add the likes of Boise and or Memphis, which would be very interesting for BYU to have a travel partner built in with Boise potentially.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of broke down some things, TV market size, and different things with the programs and that. And Boise and Memphis, I mean, it's clear cut that the four teams they're adding are the right four for right now for a variety of reasons. The TV market's one thing, and everybody says it's all about football now, but but it's also about those programs. But it would be nice for BYU not to be this outlying Western outpost, which they would be right now, because I think the closest team is almost 900 or over 800 miles away. And then the trip to Central Florida is 2,300 miles. I mean,
that's a horrible flight, by the way, especially if you're flying Frontier, which I have done a couple times. It's horrible.
Yeah, the Orlando flight's not ideal. Somebody actually posted on Twitter earlier today that it's a 34-hour drive if you want to, make that to Orlando.
That's almost more appealing than flying Spirit to Orlando. So yeah.
However, if Frontier and Spirit would like to advertise on the podcast, we'd love to have your money.
We got a spot for you guys. Yeah.
All the vouchers. Give me all the vouchers.
All the vouchers. We'll give them away. Let's jump to the fourth quarter, guys. Something called the National Football League starts Thursday night. What do you guys think? Is Tampa the team to beat, or is the champion always the team to beat? Alex, what do you think?
It's going to be interesting. I mean, I thought that Tom Brady would be well past his prime by now, and yet he went down and won another championship in Tampa Bay like it was, just as easy as waking up. So we'll see how they perform. I know that. I mean, it seems like anytime I make an NFL prediction, I'm always wrong. So I'm not going to make any predictions here just because I don't want to.
We won't hold it against you, Lundy. Just go ahead.
Well, it's more just I don't want to tip anybody's hand as far as the gambling prospects go, because, if I say something, they can very easily put money on it and make a lot.
The opposite.
So I'll refrain from that, just because I don't want to give any unfair advantages to anybody. But I am interested to see how much longer Tom Brady can go if Tampa Bay is able to start, stay on top of things, and just see what kinds of surprises the NFL season has in store. All I know for sure is that as a Bengals fan, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Did you say the Bengals with Christina Hoffs or the Bengals? Aren't they one and the same?
I mean,
Bad joke. Yeah. To be old.
Not too much of a difference at this point.
But appreciate. Hey, Jake, we're forgetting about Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, and they obviously had their problems come Super Bowl time and all that. But on paper, that's probably the strongest team in the NFL. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say so. It's all going to depend on that revamped offensive line. If they can give Mahomes the time he had 2 years ago, there's no reason to think that Kansas City, Andy Reid, Mahomes, and company can't make another run at the Super Bowl. I'm with Lundy, though. Tampa Bay is as well equipped a defending champion to run it back as I have seen in quite some time. They did a masterful job, essentially just bringing everybody back. They've still got a lot of young talent along with those veterans, and I'm with you, Lundy. The fact that Tom Brady's still getting this done in his 40s is stunning to me, but it's just Tom Brady. He's the GOAT for a reason.
Austin, they brought all 22 starters back. That's almost unheard of in this era of free agency.
It really makes me mad, especially because you and I, we're Seahawks fans. Russell Wilson's our guy. I really like Russell Wilson. He's a great player. Everybody knows that. He's probably a consistently top 5 quarterback in the league. However, Tom Brady does something that Russell Wilson never will do, which is why, and the fact that Tom Brady does this is the reason why he's the greatest of all time. He's willing to take less money to keep the team around him, to keep guys intact, and guys want to play with him. Russell Wilson's problem is he wants to be the highest paid player in the league so badly. And it seems like a lot of the times, his, he kind of projects like a holier than thou attitude that it maybe is a little bit abrasive to some guys in the league. I don't think guys want to play with Russell nearly as much as they want to play with Tom Brady. It frustrates me. I wish Russell, our guy, would look at Tom Brady and say, this is the model of how to be successful in this league. Take less money. His wife is a pop star, for crying out loud. They're fine. They don't need to be multi-trillionaires. It's going to be okay. Take a little less money, have a better team around you.
I was going to say Giselle makes more than Tom makes by oodles and oodles, and
yes,
it doesn't cause an issue. The one thing I wanted to interject here is Kyle Van Noy used to come on with DJ and PK, and when he first got to the Patriots, he said that his first interaction with Tom Brady was Tom Brady literally walking up, shaking his hand and saying, "Hi, I'm Tom." That shows you, I think, a little bit of who Tom Brady is. He's kind of an everyman, even though he easily could be a guy, "Hi, I'm Tom Brady." And Kyle Van Noy said he kind of expected that, but he was stunned just by the simplicity of Tom walking up and saying, "Hi, I'm Tom. What's up?"
Yeah, it's interesting. And, you look at the NFL rosters too, and there's over 40 guys with, collegiate ties to Utah. We almost have our own team.
We should have a team.
Almost a 53-man roster.
Yeah.
it's getting there. Maybe in a couple of years.
Maybe our guy Brian Brown could dig up some of those old Stallions jerseys, and we could get the guys back together, get the gang back together.
I know he's got them squirreled away somewhere, so I'm sure we can.
He's got to have just crates of stuff lying around somewhere. I'm sure of it.
Well, guys, that'll do it for our 4 quarters. We're down to our parting shots. Austin, why don't you lead us off tonight?
Yeah. Well, a couple things, at my job at ABC4, a couple cool things happened this week. Ron McBride, former head coach at the University of Utah, came by. This is going to be my parting shot. The coach obviously is such a huge part of the community still. I heard, after he was let go at the University of Utah, he obviously went to Kentucky, I think, and worked there as a coordinator or a line coach, and hated it so much, just being out of the state, that he literally jumped at the opportunity to go coach at Weber State. That was just how excited he was to be back in Utah. Anyway, my point is he has a foundation now, the Ron McBride Foundation, and he's constructing a brand new track and kind of fitness center for the Glendale area in Salt Lake City. So he's aware that's a very kind of hard struck area, kind of low on the social eco plane, I guess you could say. And Ron McBride giving back to the community. He's a great guy. He's a Utah legend for sure.
Alex, you got a parting shot?
Yeah, I'm going to keep mine relatively brief. I don't want to get too much into the story. I'm sure that everybody has heard it enough and is a little bit sick of it. But so the Utah lawmakers that are criticizing Donovan Mitchell for his beliefs off the court. In my personal belief, the Utah lawmakers aren't that great at politics anyway. So the Utah lawmakers stick to sports.
I like it. Jake?
Well done, Alex. I like that. We need more of that. I just want to kind of echo, Ronnie Mack is one of the best human beings out there, by the way. So it was really cool to hear you give him that shout out, Austin. I just wanted to kind of echo what Kalani Sitake said earlier this week about the Holy War. He said, this is a fun rivalry. Fan bases have a good time with it. I enjoyed it. He said, I grew up a fan of BYU. My older brother played at Utah. My younger brother played at BYU like I did. It's literally something that splits families. But he said, wishing bad things on good people does nobody's soul any good. And I probably butchered the actual quote there, but I thought it was very profound. I know it's been put in some of the headlines recently, but I think we can all kind of step back and understand, you know what? There are good people on both sides of this rivalry. And as Kalani said, wishing bad things on them, it does nothing good for you.
Yeah, great one. And I'll bring us home. For the past 17 years, I've been the beat writer for the University of Utah. And the Utes are going into a season, with heavy hearts. They lost Ty Jordan. They lost the big booster and Bob Garf. They lost Bill Marcroft, legendary broadcaster. And then they lost John Pease, who was a former player and coach. And I'll always remember, enjoying a pregame meal with John Pease and listening to his stories about the Washington Huskies and the New Orleans Saints. And maybe I've heard of a couple of those stories a time or two, but I could listen to him all day. And he was such a nice man, and he'd give you all the insight you wanted. And it didn't surprise me when Morgan Scally said he was a mentor, and I know he was a great friend of Kyle Whittingham. So maybe to go along with what you said, Jake, is that these are human beings. These aren't just entities, and these are people that suffer the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And there's some heavy hearts, and I a lot of people have lost in that, but John Pease will be remembered as somebody who was, I think Morgan Scally called him the true Utah man. And so thoughts and prayers with him or with his family at this time. And that's my parting shot. Guys, we appreciate you joining us. Just a reminder that you can listen to this podcast where?
Anywhere. We got an Apple, Spotify. I'll throw up the YouTube video very quickly. Also, we posted on our site. We have a lot of great stuff. Big guy here has been working hard, getting ready to get people informed for the week. I'll throw some stuff up as well. Also, just to plug, Jake's got a couple of great things going. He's the doctor of podcasting. Everybody knows that. He's got Locked On Utes and Locked On Cougars, so he's got you covered on both sides. Lundy, of course, producer over at 1280 and co-host of the Saturday Show along with Jake. So.
And let's push the Saturday Show, guys. It's a really good listen. These guys do a great job, and
these guys are going to have a very busy day this week. I do not envy them.
They're going to have busy careers too, because they're very good at what they do, and I wish them nothing but the best. And
thank you, guys. Just a quick plug for that. We're calling this time of year, we call ourselves the pregame show. So 12 to 2 on Saturday afternoon, we'll get you ready for that Holy War game. And funny enough, we've actually got another in-state game this weekend. Weber State at Dixie State. So we may even have to.
Oh, that's the one to watch.
A trip to St. George, roadie to St. George. Why not? That's going to be interesting to see. I noticed I think they lost 19-7 to Sacramento State. Dixie did.
Correct.
And, they're making a what I think is a quantum leap up to big boy football, and as we call it, I don't want to offend them. I don't need some Dixie guys coming after me, but there's a lot of changes, and in Southern Utah has played just an absolutely tough schedule to start the year. So football is alive and well in the state, guys, and the rivalry game is something we can all look forward to. And like you said, I think the important thing is keep it in perspective. It's a game. Love your neighbor, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.